to TGE, the podcast. Hope you're doing well. What a weekend for people that give a shit. Lots of stuff happening. Tyler, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Sven? I just want to thank everyone real quick for listening to the show before I dissect this comment Sven just made. And I also want to thank you for subscribing to the podcast. Thank you for telling your friends about the podcast. Thank you for the outreach, the comments, the messages, the emails. It's all great. It all helps us make the podcast as good and fun as we can make it. So thank you.
Nice.
If you're listening to us on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, subscribe. If you haven't, you can, according to Ross, you can say, Siri, subscribe to this podcast, and it will.
Nice. I totally forgot this episode is going to be about Game of Thrones, but I have a feeling we're also going to talk a little bit about Endgame, right, Tyler? What do you think about that flop?
Did you see Endgame, Sven?
No, there were a billion other people that were in front of me, so I walked away from it.
Wait, you actually went to the theater?
Fuck no. No, I didn't.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I was going to tell you about advance tickets. Ironically, I saw it in the best imaginable environment possible in Westwood at the Fox Theater, which was like the first building built in Westwood. So it's a great historic theater, sort of like the Ace Hotel one we were at, Sven.
Right.
And the friend bailed, and but I had these non-refundable tickets, and it was just like bad timing to go on Thursday night. But it's not reserved seating or anything, but it ended up working out great. And it was the reaction, like through the whole film, just in that location at that time, was precocious to say the least. I guess the cheer squad was there, so I was like trying to get popcorn and heard like screaming that makes you like spill your drink from inside the auditorium, and it was like that through the entire movie, like every time. So as far as I'm convinced, I've never, in all the movies I've seen over however many years, none of which being the movies on the AFI list that we went through last week, it was it was the most. I've never heard that much like football game style cheering through the whole thing. So it could have been someone tying their shoes, and I would have been like, oh, cool, this is the greatest movie ever made. But, the environment influenced it. I heard 75% of it, so I look forward to seeing the movie.
Is it a good movie?
That's the thing, is I don't know how to judge that based on, and that's it really made me appreciate the value of the cinematic experience.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think it's very, very well done, and I don't know, especially compared to the Battle of Winterfell, it certainly serviced the series very well in a lot of ways I didn't expect, and I didn't want anything spoiled because I just hate spoilers more than I like any of these IPs, and it was cool. They really played with it, and they really protected it in terms of the trailers and promos really only featuring really early stuff in the movie, so you have no idea what's going to happen, and it was played with in a fun way. I mean, I don't think the wheel was reinvented, but it's certainly to have, I don't think there's a lot of examples in film history of 20 different films in a series leading up to something and then successfully pulling that off in a meaningful way and having like a lot of great fun. It's kind of like that's the fun thing about Avengers is there's different stuff for everybody.
Yeah.
So there's certainly stuff I liked more than others might, and stuff I guarantee you they liked more because I heard the screams, Sven.
Nice. Well, I'm glad. I hope it's a good movie. From somebody who didn't even know what that film is about a week ago, to wake up to the news that it made $1.2 billion in a weekend, which means we're going to have Marvel movies and DC movies coming out of our ears for the next 10 years. Because there is just no let up on the genre, obviously.
Yeah, the other thing that was interesting was it really does feel like an ending where it's like, oh, where can you go from here? And then, like, kind of as you walk away from the theater, it's like, oh, right, that ball's still in the air, that ball's still in the air, that ball's technically still in the air. Technically, you could still do that. So it was,
they're not going
fun
away.
In that way, but
they won't be going away. As long as people show up, they'll be there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Some things will, some things won't. But this is a spoiler-free podcast.
Yeah, well, okay. Good news, bad news situation. Glad we talked about that.
Good.
Now, I watched Game of Thrones this morning. I watched the episode.
Oh, it's Monday. We should say that, Sven.
Yes.
It's Monday morning, and we watched Game of Thrones last night, and the episode's going out this evening.
Exactly. And I'm going to have a similar sort of detached point of view on this, so this is going to be a really interesting podcast, I think, because I haven't seen any of the seasons. I saw maybe season 1,
Wait,
2,
what?
3 about 5 years ago, and then I sort of decided, okay, I want more life out of my life than trying to keep up with this. And
Wow.
so people obviously spent many, many years leading up to this point, and I hope they are happy and satisfied. From what I'm seeing online, it seems like it's getting great scores, but I saw a lot of comments of people feeling a little mixed about it. But tell me, what about you? Like, what's your Game of Thrones status? Are you a fan? You obviously watched every episode. You're up to, you know what's up.
As I said, Sven, I hate spoilers.
Yes. Yeah. So
So
what we're
I
going to
watch
do, I
everything.
mean, let's talk about the spoiler situation. Are we going to reveal anything? Are we going to do this spoiler-free?
I don't think there's a need to.
To reveal anything.
I think there's a way to nerd out about it and do that, but then I think kind of the point of this podcast is to discuss technique a little bit.
Yes.
So I think we can do that without revealing anything.
All right, you might have
I
to
mean,
stop me every once in a while, but I'll
if we're
try.
gonna give away a spoiler, I mean, I'll tell you right now, if anyone died, we're not gonna say that.
Okay.
Right? That seems pretty fair.
Well, the good news is I don't know their name, so I won't be able to say who died, if anybody died.
I said if anyone died.
Yeah.
But so let me back up here, because I was under the impression, because you were the one that suggested Battle of the Bastards. I thought that you were a Game of Thrones fan and were up to speed.
No, I just watched Tim Porter in a panel, who's the editor of this particular episode as well, and he sort of discussed the scene, and then I'm like, oh, that's a cool battle scene. That's kind of cool. Let's talk about it. But I hadn't really kept up with it. But I have to say, it's actually not really necessary. Like, I felt like I wasn't like super confused. I'm sure I missed a lot of subtleties about certain things happening, but I knew who is who and who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, and what they're doing, what's up.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
In this case,
For
right?
sure.
Who's good and who's bad, which might be an issue I had with the episode. But that said, okay, all right, yeah, so I guess we kind of paint ourselves into a corner a little bit here for a few reasons I only realized watching the episode. One, based on the reaction to our Battle of the Bastards episode and the fun we had doing that, I was very excited that there was an episode-long battle scene that had been promised, and thought that would be a lot of fun to talk about. So we even re-recorded last week when we realized it was coming this week, Sven hyping it. So a lot of people are here to listen to us break it down. But then watching it, and again, we're not going to do any spoilers. I don't know. What was your reaction to it, Sven?
I felt like I was ahead of the story for most of the time. Like, nothing,
What do you mean?
Like, no move happened where I'm not like, before it happened, I'm like, that's probably what's going to happen.
Okay, do you want to give us an example?
Ooh.
Which is fine because you don't know the names of any characters.
Yeah,
We are going to talk a little bit about that there are phases of the battle.
the phases of the battle.
I'm assuming
Like-
no one's going to listen to us dissecting the Battle of Winterfell episode, expecting not to
Like
hear about the Battle of Winterfell.
I mean, this is a classical storming of the castle kind of thing. It's like literally a storming of the castle, which often in a movie is just figuratively. It's like that third act where it all comes to that final battle, and you think it's going to go one way, and they're going all out, they're pulling all the stops, the good guys have a plan, they execute on the plan, and then they fail, and then they go sort of in the dark of the night where they have to like dig deep, have to like really discover what their values are, what the characters are made of, and because they show heart, then they sort of get out of it.
Right.
That's sort of the formula, and then the question is when you tell the story, because that's the formula. That's how you tell a story. There's no other way of telling the story. It's always that pattern. But yet you have to make it in a way that is unpredictable. It's plausible, yet surprising. And I was missing the surprising part quite a bit.
Right.
There was one moment where I felt like, oh, that's a cool little twist, and now I could do a little hint or trying to say something about it. But
right,
I guess like the army of the dead, what happened to them, like towards the 2/3 into the battle, and what happened to everybody else, I'm like, oh, I get it. That's nice. That's actually now they're even in more trouble than they thought.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because I guess going into it based on, because we thought we did an episode on the Battle of the Bastards, almost 2 episodes, like our longest episode, because there's something about the writing of it in terms of a battle scene being done on television that was just, it was very, 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 it was probably, it's like one of the great battle scenes of all time.
I agree.
So assuming that and a lot of that's because of the innovation, a lot of it's because of expectations being subverted, losses you don't expect to happen, especially not so quickly. It's in daylight. But so with this whole idea that, Game of Thrones is challenging movies, challenging cinema, I think that we both thought that today's episode was going to be sort of just like a worshipping at the altar of this amazing feat of like, the first like hour-long battle scene ever filmed. But, I had some issues with it too. I think it was like a big swing, and it was fine. It wasn't bad. I watched it when I had to eat, so kind of measured the success of it by when I would step away to cook stuff, and that didn't happen for like 30 minutes, so that's cool. But it happened, and I think that the thing you're talking about, it just didn't. One, I think you're saying setting up expectations is important, and I feel like there were only a couple times this really happened, and I felt like for the battle scene to work, it could have tracked a lot better through that. Like there's a moment where a fire needs to be lit. We can just say that I thought the stakes were just of that little beat, like within the battle, like the stakes were laid really clearly. And because of that, like, suspense was created. But in terms of really understanding the, let's just call it the Winterfell team's plan, and versus understanding the White Walkers' plan, and also like there was a lot of people expected this wasn't going to go the way that it was so clearly laid out. Period. That there wasn't even going to be a battle. That they were just going to march past the castle or whatever. But it was kind of like, this is what we promised, and this is what happened. And there were like a few little surprises in it, but ultimately, I think it's just why you don't want to go to movies that are just hours of fighting.
Yep.
Like I'm much more interested in the drama of the scenes.
Yep. I tell you, I give you that. I thought the beginning was done nice. Like it took its time, and then there were a bunch of horses riding into the night, kind of, and you could kind of see what happens to them without seeing it. Like you could feel it in a way. And I thought, okay, that's cool. That's like I'm feeling the force that I'm not seeing yet. That's coming. I thought it was a powerful beginning. Good way to set up suspense and action.
Very Jaws-like.
Yes.
Right, of not knowing what's beyond, what's out there, what's coming for us, and then, I don't know, but then, like, where's that twist of, holy shit, like, it's this? Like, this was our plan, and they totally screwed it. And then the other problem I have, and I kind of, gave Jon Snow some grief for being like a shit battle strategist in the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah.
But man, he really outdid himself on this one in terms of like how fucking useless can a guy be?
I agree with you.
My
Actually, you
God.
know what? That was one of the biggest weaknesses of this huge battle, and I mean it's a challenge obviously, which is you have all these different parties acting locally, so you have to intercut. You have to go, meanwhile this happened, meanwhile that happened. Right. So there were many moments throughout this 1 hour battle fight where they would be cutting to the dragons flying in the air, and nothing would happen. You had no idea where they were going and why they were going, what their plan was. And then when they needed to come back, okay, I guess now they turned around, and why didn't they stay there the whole time and just spew fire on as many people as they could? That's the most effective way they could have helped in any way, but they were just sort of doing a little spewing, and then they went on a road trip, and they just needed to be away.
Yeah, and what's funny with this is that we're talking a lot about the story, but that's kind of a way to approach the editing.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like maybe stuff got cut out, like scenes got cut out, like, or there was an obligation because it's like an hour battle scene. It's like, well, we can't have dialogue scenes, and it's like, yeah, but you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just, they reference some other great battles in it, like the battle with the firewater. I forget what that one is, where Dinklage's character got to be a hero. It's so funny because there's been so many like well done battles in this series, but yeah, it would have been nice to know. And I know from watching like the 45-minute making of that they put out this morning, that it was an 11-week shoot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's explained after the fact, like all that stuff was in there, but it wasn't clarified like the fire moment. So, for example, what's going on is they have this plan that they're going to wait for the night to reveal the White King or whatever to reveal himself. And again, like little spoilers, there's a lot of characters that what's the dragon woman's name? We'll just call her that. Yeah. So, or Daenerys. This is what big fans we are. So, don't look for any great insights here. So she, something she cares a great deal about is sacrificed immediately in a way she's surprised by, which I'm surprised they would be surprised because it's probably the most sacrificial, shittiest battle move ever to do that to them. And so apparently panics and then decides to deviate from hanging out with the dragon, which isn't being used in battle, but, is just waiting to kill the king. So she takes off, and then Jon Snow, such a dumb fuck, because she took off, gives up on his whole plan, like, instantaneously. None of which is clarified, right? So this isn't clarified or like set up for us that this stuff is going on or happening or reiterated, which I think is good doing, something you can often do in editing, but maybe, they just felt like it was there or whatever. So took it out in the cut, which is highly possible, but a lot of that. And then like even, small spoiler, like there's a problem they have making a fire that once the fire is made, you realize Jon Snow is sitting on a fucking dragon, like within fire breath's distance of where the fire needed to be made. Like he like watching, like it's like what a fucking useless fuck this guy is. I just can't get over it. And I almost think it's like the series is now making a point of that, just the way that things play out. What a useless fuck he is.
Think so?
Where I'm like, finally, like the show has accepted what I've always thought. Like Captain fucking Dumbluck, like I've never seen what it's gonna trash Jon Snow, what it is that's so like he's supposed to be this great, like this, that, and the other, and it's like, okay, apparently he can just like walk through battle at any time.
Yeah.
Not get hurt. But the character I'm far more interested in definitely got the glory, and that's kind of what I'm excited to see play out. Who's had a way more interesting journey through the show.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed is there was about a third of the cast that just didn't have a job for 60 minutes.
Right.
They were just in a holding. They were basically in the green room, just waiting that this like the movie would come to them, and then they still didn't have anything to do. So there must have been a bunch of actors just with no lines and no action, just hanging out.
Well, the other thing that was funny with this battle was kind of knowing from a writing perspective going into it, like if it really, like, because everybody was like, oh, so-and-so might die, so-and-so might die, so-and-so might die. And it's like, if those characters die, there is actually no show. Yeah. Like if you think this was disappointing in terms of how like this massive antagonist that's been built up as like this weird stakes behind the series from the first opening scene is dispensed with, then there would really be nothing.
But at this point, can't they just kill anyone? I mean, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is, what would the show be if they killed off like basically everyone that's left alive? Like, I had no doubt those people were going to make it through and would have been shocked if one of them died. But then if they did, I don't know what the last episodes would be.
How many more episodes do we have?
I think there's 8 this season, so that would mean there's like 4 or 5 left. Yeah.
I think you could probably do anything at this point. You could kill Dragon Lady or Jon Snow, and it would actually help the series because you need I think at this point you really need
well,
like
who says
big
they're
moves.
alive, Sven?
True.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Fuck. So that's a great thing about the last season is like you have that option to do anything, unless I don't know if are we still like on book or are we past the books?
Oh, the book is way gone, and
Yeah.
and I think that's another thing too. Like as amazing as this series has been, and like groundbreaking in terms of not really following the mold of television. In terms of we have A, B, and C stories, but they're almost entirely unrelated.
Yeah.
Right, which isn't necessarily new to like the style of an epic or whatever, but it's still really cool that you're like it's unique in that it's able to branch away from like a central protagonist and completely develop new characters going through new things and like introduce someone out of the blue that becomes, you know, a total legend. But a lot of that's from the source material, and I notice, you know, my theory, and I don't think that's going to be happening much this season either. And of course there's actors that come in and give like a great performance and then a character will be made for them, as we saw with, I don't know, a certain person that gets crushed in this one.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. It's interesting the corner they're kind of in, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I also have to recognize, I mean, I looked on IMDb. It has, I mean, the following is just insane. Like, it already has, this particular episode has like 40,000 votes on IMDb. I looked on YouTube videos about, like, just talking about what happened and showing stills of it. They have 600,000 views within, like, hours. So the appetite is huge for this whole mythology, the show, and everything. I mean, people invested so much time in this, and this is kind of the culmination or one of the big moments, the payoff, everything that you've invested. So I'd be very curious to know how the viewers really, like people that are real hardcore fans, how they felt about the episode. I skimmed through some comments and it looked pretty mixed to me.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. There were a lot of complaints about there being too much darkness and stuff, which...
Oh yeah, it was super dark. I mean, I had to like really bring up my TV set where it was all like milky just to see a lot of stuff.
Which I think, again, I think that's a budgetary thing too. It's like a choice, but I think also, like we've talked a lot about, you know, in the Battle of the Bastards, there are kind of those waypoints that let you know where we are and what's happening, which I think that, you know, in terms of the burning bodies, like that's almost the main purpose they serve in Battle of the Bastards. So, and I mean, I guess in this, I would say that I largely had a sense of where everyone was at all times. Mm-hmm. So they pulled it off, but one of the mile markers for knowing where we are was just total darkness, which is an interesting way to do it. Another thing I guess we should talk about is the style of it. So basically, it was different genres.
Okay.
And this is in something they mentioned in the making of too, is that it starts and it's a suspense thing.
Okay.
Right? And then it becomes there's a whole section that's like a horror movie.
Yes.
Right? I don't want to say where that takes place, but I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then there's like a total battle, you know, an actual action movie. So it was like they kind of like broke down these different genres to approach it, but I don't know. I feel like if anything, this episode's a landmark in, you know, the true value of action. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that any of this really propelled the story forward either, was the weird thing. Like at the end of the series, or the end of the episode, there was nothing that had happened that was, except for maybe one little change of perspective on a character. Mm-hmm. Who was not the fucking idiot screaming at a dragon as like a final move. Like, God, that guy couldn't be any worse. It is like planning. Was he gonna like breathe fire at a dragon? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
I think so, right? I know who you're talking about.
I mean, yeah, when I say the bad strategist, we kind of know, but yeah. You know, so there wasn't really anything I felt that really like changed our perspective on the story or threw like a new kink or wrench into the series. It was just kind of like, yeah, okay, so now we just have this many less troops and this many less characters, and like a big, like, exciting part of the show is gone now. So
yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, obviously they probably got a lot of praise for Battle of the Bastards, and they needed to top that. And so that means it needs to be longer, it needs to be bigger, it needs to be just a spectacle times 10. And that really is a problem if you really only move the needle story-wise by just a few inches. That makes sense.
Yeah, and very few, and very little of the scenes that we had were about much of anything.
Yeah.
But sorry, you're saying moving the needle and...
Yeah, and specifically, like, when you even break it down to the individual characters, like character growth, nobody really changed a whole lot in there, except maybe a couple of people died. That's a big change. But
right.
Nobody, like, learned something, like, realized that they had another power. Maybe there's one guy that sort of had a little bit of a redemption story, I think, going on. But for the most part, everybody is the same before and after the story, I think. I don't know. Do you agree?
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, except for the big hero at the end had like a major arc, which is cool because that's the character I get behind.
Yeah.
So that was a change, and then I agree with you.
So, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, obviously it's working. Everybody's loving it. Everybody's loving Avengers Endgame because I'm sure it's very similar, right? It's big battles.
Well, what's different with that, and again, as I was with the screaming audience, and again, it is the end of the end, so there's a little more, things are final. At least that's the hope with it. And there's definitely unexpected. Definitely, there's a lot of unexpected things in that. It was weird. It kind of gave me an added appreciation for Endgame. It was like, because this is not the final episode of Game of Thrones. It's just the Battle of Winterfell, but it's had so much hype and build up around it, and then it's so funny to happen the same weekend as Endgame. It's it's far, 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 far less dramatic in terms of all the stuff that we're talking about, and I think that's a good example of really being locked in on what's going on with the characters, what's at stake, what's being sacrificed, versus this, which was an hour-ish long battle with like some dialogue scenes that really weren't anything, and then just reconfirmation that Peter Dinklage could do far more with nothing than a lot of people can with entire pages. Yeah, because that was to me the most moving scene, and then I realized later, like, oh, who fucking okay,
that was shot in half a day.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. So this was filmed over the course of 11 weeks. Should we talk about the production of it?
Yeah, if you know any insights. I don't know anything. That sounds like a really long time, but I could see that it would take
I feel
that
like
long.
there's got to be something bitter about making, and it is an incredible accomplishment just in and of itself. It kind of started with that oneer, and I was laughing like, oh, this is so hilarious. This whole episode's going to be like a oneer. Yeah. And we've decided, we jumped in too soon being like, we're going to talk about this thing we haven't seen yet. So this is different for us in that it didn't really draw us in any way. But then, they cut. But yeah, so there's got to be something bittersweet about, filming the scene at night for 11 weeks. And then the biggest number one complaint people had was it's too dark. Because that's a big sacrifice to shoot at night.
Yeah, but you could shoot it in a way that you could still see stuff.
No, exactly. Yeah, but I just think it's kind of there's like a funny irony to that.
I mean, again, for me, looking on the outside in, it feels to me like Game of Thrones. They figured out some stuff fairly early in the show, probably like season 4 or 5. They figured out, oh wow, we can really make big TV happen here. It's looking amazing. We can make special effects amazing if we spend this much time on this budget. And now, because the schedule is probably so hard on everybody, like the post-production schedule is probably really, really tough.
Oh yeah, they spent over a year in post on this season.
Oh really? But on this episode, did they spend?
It was a very, very long time.
Very long time.
I don't have the numbers, but like it definitely got pushed. Like the second season was pushed well over a year. It might have been maybe 2 years at this point.
I see. Well, then maybe that goes against my theory. My theory was that they sort of figured out a style and a way of telling the story that works. And now they're sort of just going through the motion of doing that. And it has to be bigger every time, so they do it again. But because of what they've... Like, they sort of become slaves of what they've figured out. They're sort of trapped with what they have in terms of special effects, in terms of what they can show. And so then, is there enough time to really say, okay, how can we push it story-wise or character-wise and go to the next level?
Right. Well, my thing is that I think that's probably all true. Again, Game of Thrones is an incredible accomplishment in and of itself, but I think some of what we're seeing is that the whole concoction of this story in the first place was George R.R. Martin being tired of Hollywood and then wanting to just go do something where he never had to worry about anyone telling him, no, that can't be filmed, like blah, blah, blah. So he just wrote the most outlandish, could never be ever committed to moving image story he could think of. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of the fun of the series has been them, trying to accommodate that, right? So now that those books are out of the picture, I think it's probably a little hard to take those swings in writing this stuff of like, well, let's do something completely impossible. It's all, just by the necessity of writing for television, it's impossible to kind of, I guess, have that approach. Like, well, let's pretend there's not a show. Like at this point, there's characters that they have to service, like this, that, and the other, it just gets a little bit tougher to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Or keep it fresh in that way. So, and then the other thing is that, maybe my final point is I think the other reason it's a little bittersweet for people is I'm sure, the deep fans have heard like a lot of rumors, but there's been nothing but talk. And the Battle of Bastards was not the final episode of the season either. It leading up to the penultimate episode, maybe it was, but all the talk and gossip about Game of Thrones has been about this insane battle scene. Mm-hmm. So the concern with that is, okay, now that this is over on episode 3, like, what are we really looking forward to? Because you haven't heard anything, like, you won't believe what the final episode is, or, like, when they finally square off. And a lot of that probably had to do with secrecy. Yep. But I don't know. It just kind of was like, okay, so that's all right, the chips got cashed, and here we are.
Well, let me ask you a dumb question, because I don't know what's going on in the show. But didn't the show start off that there were, like, two sides? Which is like one side is evil and the other side are the good guys. And they were always like going back and forth trying to regain power over this world. And then the dark, what are they called? The undead or whatever?
The White Walkers, yeah.
The White Walkers, that's like this unknown force from the outside, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of the primary conflict. And what I'm getting now, going back into it and seeing it, like those two original fronts.
Well, it's more like 3, yeah.
3, they all had to reunite. Is that what happened? To
yeah,
align?
It's supposed to have, but there's a twist too where one of them didn't, and just, so that's what it's leading up to is, okay, well, the ones that bailed on this big battle, they're sitting on the throne right now.
I see.
What's going on? And that's the other thing that was fun about the show is that it wasn't, you could get behind every character for the most part. There's a certain family that's like a little bit too big of shitheads to get behind, but then they would have good people within their midst. So it's kind of like they are kind of the villains, but you could totally get behind like a lot of the people that want the throne. So it's kind of, that's what was fun about the show too.
But from what I remember, the biggest draw of the series early on was the fact that the good guys just don't seem to be able to get a foot in, like it. Right. It always feels like injustice has been done, and we need to stick with this to finally get through it and get that reward. Like that the happy ending was never there, and I don't know if that ever came or whether that just went away because of this other force that we're now battling. What's your take on that?
What do you mean?
Like, did we ever get justice in the series? No,
that's the thing, is not yet.
Yeah, not yet. So
You know
that's
what I mean?
the
But
thing
it's
we're
still
all
achievable.
yearning
Oh, yeah.
for.
So the big battle is still, like, the original conflict is still there. It's just that, you know, that outside force is now allegedly gone.
Yeah.
So, whoops, spoiler.
And I think that's what keeps this series alive and ongoing. Is like, I remember Breaking Bad. I don't think I ever felt like, okay, I'm over the show. Like, I felt like they figured out a way how to keep us.
Yeah,
keep
and they
us
knew
engaged.
what the hand to tip was of, like, you know, Walt and Hank. Like, that was ultimately going to be the final thing.
Yeah.
And likewise with this, like, we know what the final battle is for the throne. So this is kind of like a distraction, but it didn't. I don't know. It would have been nice if it kind of motivated it. You know, did something more to, and I'm sure we'll find out in the next episode, like, oh, that set up this, that, and the other, but we didn't walk out of it feeling that way. But this is a tough, weird way to approach an episode. We apologize. You know, we did, you know, but that's what happens sometimes. We think things are going to go a certain way. They don't. We hope that you enjoyed listening to it. Is there any final sentiments you want to add, Sven?
No, I think it's a valid episode. I mean, we might have tried this with spoiling some stuff to see if then we would have gotten a little bit more insights on the storytelling. Ultimately, that's what it's about on this podcast, is to really figure out how can we become better storytellers. And I think this episode, or this particular Game of Thrones battle, is an example of almost like you're so big that it's a problem. And you kind of really then need to go like really out there and do something completely unthinkable and possibly piss some people off, which I think there were shows that tried doing that.
Or Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
You know, they really they found that balance well.
And I feel like, so looking at it from the outside, and how do you tell your own stories, and when you tell your little stories that still matter, that connect with an audience, ultimately it doesn't matter whether it's a big story or a little story. What matters is that you connect, and I feel like this episode is an example of shortcoming of connecting with some people. I mean, maybe just me. I don't know. That's really up to you, the fan, to decide.
Yeah, and I theorize we'll find out that they had this grand idea of, like, episode-long battle, and then that's kind of like a tough check to cash.
Yeah.
Also, like, maybe it ended up being a little more challenging, but now we know. So I guess I kept thinking of Hacksaw Ridge because we did that podcast a few weeks ago of how that's like a half movie battle that works out in an interesting way.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it also. So yeah, never get away from the drama. That's the lesson we learned today. That's what people watch stuff for. You can have an hour-long action scene. It's not going to be as cool as a close-up of Peter Dinklage. So if you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the podcast. If you're Game of Thrones expert, sorry that we let you down. If you're a casual fan, sorry that we let you down. Not having much to explore on either side of that in terms of the craft or the nuance of the series. But let a friend know about the show. And if you want to make comments, where would they do that, Sven?
thisguyedits.com/comment.
And thanks to Curtis for the music, and as Sven always says,
happy editing. I'll do it. What happened to the fucking dog? There was a dog there, and then we never saw it again. I mean, that's a waste of 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
It's iPhones and TV shows about tweakers. There's no sane zone, so put your head between the speakers. There's no sane zone, so put your head between the speakers.
Yeah, we're at 41 minutes, which, like, it felt like we had to stall this time. Like, we could have been done in 20 minutes.